I offer my repeated humble obeisances at the lotus feet of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the Panchatattva, to the previous acharyas, and to all the assembled devotees. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripasindhya evacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Just as we are reading, Nirakula and I, in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the chapter 3 entitled Freedom from the Illusory Energy, the sages, the yogendras, Havi Antariksha, Prabodha Pipalayana Avirhotra, Karbhajana, Chamasa, and we're missing one, Sri Antariksha. And their discussion, they've divided the topics, so each one can talk about a particular niche and fulfill the desires of Maharaj Nimi, who's sincerely inquiring about the perfection of life. And in that third chapter, Kavihad Antariksha describes how one of the main processes for coming to Krishna consciousness is to gather together with other devotees who have faith in the Lord and then have discussion. And we see this going on at Naimisharanya and many other places. But he says in that assembly of devotees, by that assembly of devotees, that intentionally come together to talk about Krishna, Krishna is pleased. And because Krishna is pleased, then everyone who comes into that assembly is uplifted by Krishna himself. Of course, everything comes from Krishna. All our advancement is due to Krishna's mercy. And that is the way in which he describes how one can achieve Krishna's mercy, is coming into the assembly of devotees and discussing. And when I met with 3 devotees in the back room the other day for a back room incense-filled room of discussion, one of the devotees, who I said, did you have a point to make? He said, no, I just know that for those who are fallen, they should just sit with Vaishnavas and listen. And Prabhupada once said that God helps those who help themselves, and helping oneself means putting oneself in front of transcendental sound vibration. So that by that, one is enveloped by the sound that comes from faithful Vaishnavas. That's transformative. Changes the heart. What needs to change in order to take advantage of the human form of life? Human beings are complex, but not hopelessly so. We're complex because we're finely tuned. There are many species of life that are tuned in various ways. Beavers, for example, are really good at cutting down trees with their teeth and building dams. And I saw a YouTube video where somebody had a beaver as a pet, and the beaver chewed the furniture and tried to build a dam in the house. Not a highly recommended pet. But it indicated that wherever you put the beaver, he's tuned to certain impulses. Human beings, on the other hand, have a wider spectrum in which they can express emotion, they can think about causality, they can contemplate. Therefore, the Shastra says, Atato Brahma Jignasa. Good luck, little human, because you've come to this position, now you can ask really big questions about where you came from and what's the purpose of life. What's more, we can appreciate aesthetics, the touch of our senses to the fineries of life, art, music. It can touch our souls. In the science of drama, for instance, many of the Vedic scholars have talked about how one may have a transcendent experience through watching theater. I've had that myself because my parents used to take me to theater a lot. And I've had experiences where I've forgot myself, went out of body. There's also music, raga, which is meant to bring out from the heart various emotions. We were listening to one yesterday on the way home that is meant to be sung between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in the afternoon. It's specifically tuned to bring out a feeling, an emotion. And of course, we know from being in a human body that we experience a plethora of emotions even during a 24-hour period. Almost too much to handle. So much so that we need guardrails so that we can be effective. At least I do. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna very helpfully tells us about ways in which we can bring our emotions and our attitudes into tune with the highest purpose of life and thereby be happy. By that, be happy. I quoted yesterday from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Dukeshva anuvigna manaha sukeshu vigataspriha vitaraga bhaya krodha. He says that Krishna says when he's describing stitadir munurichite, a person who's stitadi, his consciousness, her consciousness is fixed and not being squandered, not being overbearing or, as we call, neurotic. He said a person who's firmly fixed has a clear idea of what the purpose of life is and how to attain it. Those two things can give one a sense of enthusiasm and confidence in life, can't they? If we know what the goal of life is and we know how to attain it, this is a kind of Śraddhā. I know where to put my heart, rather than being circumspect and thinking, oh, maybe I don't know what to do next. Stitadi, one's consciousness is fixed in one direction. I know where to go. And so he had described, did Krishna, the person who's fixed like that. And Vita means he's free from these three kinds of neuroses, which is an inordinate attachment to matter, which doesn't make sense and causes us cognitive dissonance. Because although we know it doesn't make sense to be attached to the temporary, we have no alternative, therefore we take that as our default mode. And bhaya means fear of personhood, which goes to the deepest levels of neuroses in one's life, and that one is self-doubting. And then thirdly, there's a kind of anger that arises out of frustration due to being unsure of what the goal of life is and being exposed to various ideas that seem to compete. So Krishna says the Stitadi Muni is one who's aligned in those three areas, knows what to be attached to, talking on the positive side, knows what to be afraid of and what not to be afraid of, and finally knows where anger or frustration can be applied or where it's useful. Then he says it again in the 4th chapter, 10th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Vitaraga bhaya krodha mammaya mamupashrita bahavo Jñāna-tapasa putamad bhavamagataha. He said that there's lots of people, bahavo Jñāna-tapasa, who have become free from these psychological anomalies. How? By Jñāna-tapasa. This is very helpful. Jñāna-tapasa means, according to our acharyas, an alignment with perfect knowledge. And one who knows the difference between one thing and another, anyad evahur sambhavad, anyadahura sambhavad, iti shushrumadhiranam yenas tadvichakshire. Guided by those who are already perfectly fixed in knowledge, can distinguish what's important knowledge and what isn't. And this is a prerequisite, says Krishna in this verse, for overcoming these 3 anomalies that trouble anyone who hasn't been aligned in Krishna consciousness. Continuing that thought, the sages at Naimisharanya, listening to Sutta Goswami, I kind of entered into that concept backwards, so I'm going to start over again. Sutta Goswami gives clear indication about the importance of being aligned in perfect knowledge. In the 12th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavatam, entitled Divinity and Divine Service, where he says, Tachtridatana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shuta grihitaya, which indicates that, as a follow-up from the previous verse where Sutta said there are various aspects of the Supreme, although he's Advaya, and the knowledge of him, that tattva, it means he's one thing, but there are 3 varieties. But there's a hierarchy of knowledge. He said, in order to understand knowledge properly, one should be Śraddhā, sincerely interested in the topic. That's one qualification, Śraddhā. And munayo. Munayo means he's addressing the sages, oh my sage, oh great sages. But another commentary I read said, means you should also be a muni and thoughtful. What kind? A stitidiya muni. So he says, Tachradhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya. In order to take the path of bhakti, you also have to have performed this Jñāna-tapasa, this austerity of cultivating proper knowledge. And therefore he says in this verse, Jnana vairagya yuktaya, that you have to be connected to proper knowledge, and also you have to have a sense of detachment from the world, which incidentally, or importantly, I should say, is mentioned by Sutta when he said, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaya Yashavairagyam Jnanam Chayara Haitukam, which is that when you perform devotional service directly in the processes of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc., then you naturally become empowered by Jnana and Vairagya. Tashradhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashyantyatmani chatmanam means that then you have a clear idea of yourself and who you are, no misgivings about your personhood. And also that you are, even by logic, that you come from the Supreme Person. And what's more, that he accompanies you, us, wherever we go, and that he's the source of our life. Bhakta Shruta Grihitaya. These are the qualifications given. Are they difficult or prohibitive? Not at all. They're fully available to everybody in the process of bhakti. Just giving a little cultural background about the conundrum we might have based on these 3 psychological anomalies. And an intriguing study of the psychological condition of the human beings and the societal implications. Famous sociologist Erich Fromm wrote a book, the title of which is appropriate in this conversation. And the title of the book was Escape from, I don't want to say the wrong word because it'll ruin the effect. From what? Okay. Fortunately, we have our research group. Escape from freedom. Thank you. Maybe it gave it even more notice, because if you were a little tired or something like that, then it's like, he forgot something. But now, escape from freedom, what does that mean? There's a way, there are identifiable societal and individual psychological patterns in which people try to escape from freedom. For instance, Erich Fromm talks about the ways coming out of feudalism and, the Magna Carta, which was a declaration of free the people who had been enslaved as laborers under a system of kings and queens and so forth. And then emanating from the Magna Carta came the Constitution of the United States, which was a little band of people who wanted to be free themselves, made their own constitution, and built into it ideas about how each individual should have access to education, become self-determining, and then vote for their own people, and so forth. But he shows there's a cycle, and many people have studied this. When people attain freedom on a societal level, then it becomes burdensome. We don't want to study all that stuff. It's easier to fall into ignorance. And there are phenomena which can be which are defined and discussed about how people take shelter of groups. On an individual level, there have been studies into people, for instance, who go to a football match, and I'm talking about in England especially, because I noticed along the rest stop areas, there's signs saying that football hooligans are not welcome because they come and wreck everything. But they get into these big crowds, and then they lose their sense of identity, and they start chanting, and then they become one with the crowd. They give up their individuality, and they want to do whatever the crowd does. They actually forget themselves. And there's ways in society that people also give up their freedoms because they feel confused. And krodha, they become angry. And they say, we don't know what to do with ourselves. We'll just leave it to these people. They'll decide for us. And from that arises despotism. And there are numerous ways society goes that way, and individuals go that way as well. And this is a conundrum, and it's described under the umbrella of Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, the conundrums for the living beings. So, in a very interesting twist, given that Krishna gives in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Raga dvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indriyaishcharan atmavashera vidheyatma prasadam arigachati. That if you align yourself with the proper authority, you become more free. It's not that we should try to become free from all authority, because we'll be helpless even in a political way or in an individual way. We can't live completely free. We're dependent always. But he says find the right source of authority in your life. Find the right authority in your life and follow that. So raga dvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indriyaishcharan atmavashera vidheyatma prasadam arigachati. There is a way in which to use your human intelligence to discern where can I take guidance and be dependent on the regulative principles of freedom. once I embrace that and understand there is a supreme cause of all causes, there is a channel through which he gives us proper knowledge and ways to align ourselves, when we become attached to that and we perform the austerity, Jñāna-tapasa, of cultivating the details of that, then we actually become free. And prasadam adhigacchati means the mercy of the Lord is automatically available. It flows to us. We're part and parcel of Krishna. So obviously, he's always trying to take care of us, but we're just missing it. So Krishna consciousness is the panacea. It's the way in which, on an individual level, we can become free from the tyranny of our senses. We can be free from the anger that arises from misunderstanding our purpose in life. We can also change our attachments, the raga we have. It's natural. We want things. We want to see things, touch things, hear things. That can all be connected to Krishna. And personhood, as it turns out, is perfectly explained in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what everyone's afraid of, this idea of personhood, because we've been disappointed so many times by our interactions with persons, and we don't even have confidence in ourselves as persons. There are philosophies to accommodate impersonhood, that you actually don't exist, as a result of being frustrated. But Krishna says, don't worry, you can overcome all of these and become happy by purification. And what he specifically mentions here is Jñāna-tapasa. So we can fortify ourselves by regularly taking this knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and becoming sthita-di, fixed in that clear understanding. That will save us a lot of time and trouble, as the mind wants to find some new thing or try some old thing again. And that just delays the process. Don't do that. Find what the sages have vetted. And like going to a doctor, don't go to a doctor who got his or her degree watching YouTube videos. Go to the one with a diploma on the wall. He got a degree. Is in a sampradaya. He's got their head screwed on straight. They're self-effulgent. They have a lifestyle which is hard to argue with as being ideal. And if we can align in that way, as we align in that way, not if, all of you are aligned, and stay aligned and become more aligned. And then what's the problem? All problems, Prabhupada describes in the Sri Upanishad, all experiences of incompleteness are due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. So what's wrong? Just that we're not thinking of Krishna enough. And we're not hearing from the Bhagavad Gita enough. Everyone has Bhagavad Gita in the world, practically, everywhere you go. But how many people have really done this tapasya, Jñāna-tapasa? Real austerity is get absorbed in the Bhagavad Gita, understand it, commune with Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Then what will be the problem? There's no more raga, there's no more bhaya, no more fear, because you know Krishna's speaking to you directly, and you feel it yourself. And krodha, there's no more anger. You're not even angry at other people who are talking about stupid stuff. You're just like, okay, that's categorically stupid, but I don't have to participate because I have shelter. So this is a reasonable movement based on reasonable faith, and it's directly experienced. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Raja Vidya, it's the king of knowledge. Raja Guhyam, it's secret because everyone's so distracted. They can't take 5 minutes to look at it. Not even 1 minute. No time. Busy. Raga Dvesha. He says it's directly experienced for those who do take the time. You can directly experience it. This is a rallying cry that this is all we need. This is what the world needs. And we can best explain it to others when we're experiencing it ourselves. There's no substitute for maturity. And there's no substitute for Jñāna-tapas. You actually have to tax your brain and understand the Bhagavatam and understand the Bhagavad Gita and examine your own condition. It can all be putamad bhavamagata. It can all be rectified when the mind becomes purified, puta, by this Jñāna-tapasa. So no more escape from freedom. Giving our most valuable asset over to somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. Give it to Krishna. Om Tat Sat. Oh, thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Do you know how much time we have left?
I was just checking on
We're figuring out how much time I have left, how much time we have left, and in that gap, since time is passing, maybe if anybody'd like to give a reflection or ask a question, since we're here in this assembly. Yes. Okay. Thank you. No. We'll give you a microphone.
I value the importance and significance on Jñāna-tapasa, and specifically aligning ourselves with proper knowledge. And you made the point of we have reasonable knowledge that provides reasonable faith, as well as the significance of aligning ourselves with proper authority, and then becoming fixed in that. And you gave us very practical examples that make it so that we can actually do that. Thank you, Gurudev.
Thank you for the summary. Very helpful. Oh, Shami Pras.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I was appreciating what you were saying about how Eric Fromm's, perspective on how at any given time there's always going to be so many people who are unable to handle their freedom, and therefore they're distracting themselves or avoiding, the consequences of being a person. And just kind of combining that with another thing you were saying about how we have to follow somebody, we have to follow the right authority, and when we do, we're no longer avoiding our freedom or in the category of somebody who's, using their freedom to see that there are problems, but actually we receive solutions. So it was just very refreshing, because I feel like that explains so much of what's happening in the world. People are in one category or another, distracting themselves or trying to solve the problem independently, but very few people are actually willing to take those really just a few minutes to hear from Krishna. What does Krishna say? And having read Bhagavad Gita, a few times and taken shelter of it, I can say that it's my own foolishness to not continue doing so, because it doesn't stop being relevant and fresh, and it's just a reminder for me to reinvest in that, what Krishna and the acharyas have to offer on these eternal problems. They're not new problems. Thank you.
It reminds me of one of the hearing and chanting sessions we had at Govardhan Hill, where we were reading the 4th canto. And during one of the breaks, I overheard a conversation, because devotees tend to hang out in the courtyard and talk amongst themselves about how things are going or what they're hearing. And I heard one of the younger devotees there speaking to a senior devotee, and he was saying, "What was I thinking?" Meaning in that context that during the hearing and chanting sessions and hearing directly from the Bhagavatam, he had realized that he was off course in the way he was thinking and way of looking in the world. And one of the most common responses I get from people who spend a little time hearing and chanting, and going back to Govardhan Hill as an example, but it could be in any context. When we ask people, they say it was life-changing in the sense of bringing ourselves back to the context of what's most important in life, which is really helpful. There's a quotation that I think about quite a bit, which is, it's amazing how little you get done when you're not actually doing something. In other words, you may think about what you're supposed to do, what you want to do, but unless you do it, you don't actually make any progress. And you might contemplate that. I contemplate it all the time. It's like, wow, no wonder I'm not moving forward. I'm not actually doing it. And so one of the very enticing aspects of devotional service is this pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. It's directly available. It's not that you have to wait any time. You can start it immediately and any second by the very practical process of devotional service, which indicate access. We have access. It's not a philosophical system that sounds good, but then you can't enter into it. In fact, this is one of the main points of the Bhagavatam. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're starting from. Bhagavatam flips a whole culture on its head and says, here are the people, generally speaking, who are said to be unqualified for religious stuff. It's like, you can't come in here. But it says, no, everyone can, because it's based on your sincerity. And you can start the bhakti process at any point and just directly enter. Thank you, Samya Prash Prabhu. Lokaram Prabhu. Oh, Rivik, okay.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I was reflecting on the point that you had that we shouldn't escape freedom, because it reminded me when school we're studying about the Roman Empire and how there were so many dictators and the citizens had absolutely no rights. That could happen if we just give up all our freedom. Krishna has given us so much freedom for a reason, to take us back home to Godhead and pray and spread the movement all over the world and globe.
Yeah, the Romans didn't tolerate any deviation from the tenets of their governmental control. In fact, if somebody was against the Roman government or spoke out against them, it's not like if they left, they'd be okay. They would hunt them down to the ends of the earth and execute them wherever they went, because they were against the ideas of the Roman Empire. And that's how oppressive the world gets. The only freedom possible, without going through the cycles of so-called freedom and then again being exposed to despotism, is to take shelter of Krishna. Because Krishna's nice and nobody else is. In fact, human beings, said Freud, sorry to say all the psychology, I know very little about anything, but I've just noted that he pointed out that there is no measuring the depth to which human depravity can reach. In other words, you might say, oh, well, it'll never go lower than that. So no, it'll keep going down and down. What people have done to each other. When I went to Angkor Wat in Cambodia and I was studying a little of the history there and looking around the ruins of is the largest religious building ever built in the world ever, and realizing the cycles that have gone through there. First of all, the king who built the temple had met some Vedic sages, and therefore there was some indication of Vedic culture there. But then apparently got carried away because a lot of the vestiges there were his image. It's kind of like the Jimi Hendrix Axis Boldest Love put his face on the universal form. And everyone, all the devotees went, well, he's finished soon. But then after that, Pol Pot came and killed everybody. And there's this cycle in the material world, sociologically predictable, that people are going to get caught again in false freedom and then despotism, make themselves the subjects of control of other people. So, when Prabhupada came along, he said, look just follow Krishna. And we're not saying blind faith, we're saying well-reasoned faith. Read the Bhagavatam and see the subtlety and how it's presented and hear what Krishna has to say. If it's not reasonable to you, then okay, try something else. But if you can find the authority to follow and stand by that is unassailable, then you're in luck, because we have to follow some authority. That's our nature. And we can't be completely independent and just become angry at everybody. And I met this gentleman once at the Montreal, French speakers, Ratha Yatra, and I was in the book booth, and he came over, and he was glowering at me, and then I said, yeah? And he goes, you know this whole thing here? The whole thing? Well, yeah, everything you guys are doing? And I go, yeah. It's a mental construct, he said. He was angry. I could see Krishna's words in the Bhagavad Gita manifesting in him. Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. He was mad that we were doing what we were doing. It's like, why are you doing this? It's this mental construct. We went back and forth for a while, and I said, well, he had claimed independence from God and from Shastra or any of these ideas that we had conjured. And then I said, yeah, but we still have to die, and so do you. And then he really became angry. And I remembered out in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "You sarva haraschaham." You may reject all other authority, you may think you're independent, but when it comes down to it, we're controlled by time, and time means for us little, very delicate creatures here that at any time our wings can come off, and we'll have to give up this situation we're in now, confirmed. And so when the test of time comes, we're all subject to some controller. So Bhagavad Gita gives us the opportunity, come under the control of that personality whom Kamva Dayalum Sharanam Vrajema. Uddhava says, who else would you put yourself under? Krishna killed Putana mercifully, gave her a position in the spiritual world, and he said, why would you want to put yourself under anybody else except for Krishna? He's the one who found some redeeming quality in Putana. Enough said. If you try to approach with even a molecule of sincerity and put yourself under Krishna, then you're in the right place. Prabhu. By the way, Lokaram Prabhu flew all the way from Mayapur to be here, so he might win something. His wings didn't fall off.
It's more than worth it. I'd do it again next weekend if I had the chance. I really appreciated in your class the point about how even when we come across people who are engaging in useless discussion, we shouldn't become angry at them, and we should just acknowledge that that's happening, but not get pulled into it. and focus on our self. That really was a helpful reminder, because I have a tendency to try to get in there and sort things out, but it's like a trap, because they just want to be angry at something, and they'll just become angry at me, and I'll be angry at them. It's just an endless cycle. So it's a helpful reminder to just keep a cool head and let them carry out whatever they need to do and focus on myself. Thank you.
That's a Shastra conjunction that one should neither praise nor criticize any living being. The Smriti Shastra then says, or the Niti Shastra then says, of the two, it's okay to praise people. But he says, but the verse goes on to say, because the world is working in a uniform way, which translated means Krishna's in control, he's got this, don't worry. It's not out of order. You may feel you're out of order, or that your situation is out of, but the world's not out of order. So the Shastra says, rise to a higher level. That's Vairagya. It's a higher perspective to see that Krishna's controlling everything, and it's all coming around. And if we meet people that have a different point of view, we don't have to become angry. In fact, even in the academy, when people the more learned they become, the more they study the various contrasting theories and so forth, the more flexible they become also, because they realize that anyone can defeat anyone at any given time in any debate. It's not that people have perfect information, and therefore they become more accepting of other philosophies and so forth. And from our side, we can also appreciate that if somebody's out of alignment, including myself, there's a way in which Krishna will help us get back into alignment. That's his whole purpose, and eventually people will come to that point. Okay, yes, Prabhu. Oh, by the way, I met Lokaram Prabhu in Chicago, and I can't remember which year it was, but I do remember I was living on the 3rd floor, and he followed me up the stairs. Do you remember that? You tell the story, because it's in my mind, and I love Lokaram Prabhu like anything. I just want to hear the story again.
It's a very nice story.
Do you remember which year it was?
I think it was probably 2013 or 2013 or 2014.
Really?
Actually, we met before that. I came to Govardhan in 2011. But I was so fresh then, it's better that you don't remember. So what happened was, I was feeling very discouraged because I had met His Holiness Varshana Swami in New Vrindavan, and I wanted to take shelter of him. But at the time, the GBC was not allowing him to initiate disciples for different reasons. It was some false allegations against Maharaj, basically. And after some time, they've lifted that, and now he's accepting disciples again. But I saw it as Krishna's arrangement, and I was okay with that. I asked the GBC at the time if they might do something, and they said, well, just take initiation from somebody in ISKCON. You're connected to Prabhupada, it's okay. And I wasn't really happy with that approach, but I accepted it as Krishna's arrangement. And you were in the temple, and I went to your room, and I explained the situation to you, kind of vented, and you heard me very nicely, and I said, please pray for me. And right there, you said, Dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Dear Nityananda Prabhu, Dear Srila Prabhupada, and all our previous acharyas, I pray that Bhakta Luke can receive the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master very soon. And I was very touched that you prayed for me like that, and your words bore fruit. Thank you.
We don't know there's another point that I think is really important. Everything matters. And especially what matters is our personal touch, the personal touch in general, and also our extending it ourselves personally. We're persons. I thought about that this morning. I felt kind of enlivened. I'd woken up, I was thinking, what's going on? And I looked at myself in the mirror and I go, what's going on is you're a person. And therefore, you can recognize that you're a person. I was looking at myself and I go like, yeah, I am a person. And I was kind of like, wait a minute, I'm the one thinking that and looking. And I that's why I thought of that whole train of thought this morning. There's responsibility in personhood. You can't just merge into you can merge into the world of other people's control, the mind's control, your senses control, and just give into that. Or you can realize, I'm a person, I can do things. And also, people only respond ultimately to the personal touch. That if we have sincerity in our heart, and we're buoyed by Jñāna-tapas, and we have Śraddhā in our hearts. And that means also empathy for others. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashati Arjuna sukham va yadiva dukkam sayogi paramomata. Krishna says the yogi is the one who's had experience in the world and knows what everyone's going through because he or she has been through it, him or herself. And therefore, when seeing other people, it's not judgmental, so to speak, but empathetic, compassionate. And it's that personal touch that moves the heart of another person. And that's what Bhagavad Ashraya Prabhu said yesterday. Our movement's about love. It's a very personal thing, love and trust. If we don't have that, then we have some external proceeding that may not fulfill our heart's desire. 1, 2, 3.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
10 minutes
I
left.
just wanted to share the personal instruction when we were in a monthly Sankirtan festival in Palo Alto. I was talking to the one person from another faith who was trying to pursue me, and in that conversation, it took really longer. I kept on talking to him for almost 45 minutes. I think you noted that, and that's how the teachers are. And when I approached you and you told me that you should know why you are here, you should figure out you have 1 hour and how many books you can distribute during that time. So if one case is not taking that long, if you're going to waste half an hour in one person who is not ready yet, so just use your time wisely. I think that really helped Guru Maharaj for me overcoming that tougher situations where you get a lot of resistance, then also the anger come over, my philosophy is better than others. So just thought to share that very simple instruction, how it helped me.
Yeah, and just for completeness sake, Ishvare tadidineshu balisheshu dusatsucha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyamaha. When we're sharing our faith, we're to be discriminatory in the sense that Shastra says, don't try to force people who are not interested. Rather, wish them well. Jiva Goswami says, you let them free easily because a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can lead a man of wisdom, but you can't make him think. So don't try to force it, but rather leave them with a good impression and pray for them. Jiva Goswami says that next time, or pray for yourself, that next time I'll have the wherewithal to be able to present it. Bhagavad Ashraya, okay, Devavrata.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I wanted to reflect on Bhagavad Ashraya Prabhu's offering yesterday, as well as Indraju Maharaj's offering, and as well as an experience I had when Radhanath Maharaj was here, as well as Devamrita Maharaj, and which you yourself have mentioned on countless occasions in your lectures and talks that what you value the most in your life now is the association of your God siblings. And I was speaking with Dvijamani Gaur Prabhu last night, my dear friend, about Bhagava Ashray Prabhu's offering specifically. And we were speaking about how we see relationships within our God family, which is in a seed form of loving exchange, which yourself and your God brothers have in full fruition. I was wondering if you could speak on the nuances of how to live a life in Krishna consciousness to see that those relationships don't get neglected and that they can be expanded and come to a point of maturation where there's such genuine, non-envious, affectionate dealings between God's siblings, so that we ourselves can carry that forward in a time when you and Guru Ma may no longer be here to personally inspire us. How can we keep each other personally inspired by our dealings with each other?
Thank you for such a deeply important question. What first comes to my mind is how Rupa Goswami had so carefully placed the verse, Dadati Pratugurnati, Guyamakati Prishtati, Punkte Bojayate Chaiva, Shadvidam Pratilakshanam. At the beginning of his book about the essence of all advice on devotional service, well, near the beginning, he says loving exchanges, and he names 6 between the devotees, are extremely important, which means, as some have pointed out, before he even gets to talking about chanting the holy names, he talks about these loving exchanges. And if we keep that in mind and organize, although that sounds a little pedantic, organize around loving exchanges, but still, if we keep in mind that it's a priority and we extend ourselves to the devotees and realize that that's part of the process of devotional service to make advancement, is to have loving exchanges. Devamrita Swami, he always brings me a present. Always. He calls them prezzies. I think it's a New Zealand thing. I brought you prezzies. And it always, doesn't matter where we are in the world and we meet, he's got something, a little bag of stuff for me. And those are endearing exchanges to give and receive. And having those loving exchanges as a mainstay of one's practice of devotional service is amazingly uplifting. As devotees are very kind, and they all have something to offer us. And when their hearts open and we're in resonance with them in loving exchanges, then we naturally feel happy. So it's important then also to notice that envy can be prohibitive to our devotional advancement. Even a little drop of it can poison the wellspring of gratitude that we have for others. So to be on guard against that and to realize how debilitating envy can be. Why be envious? Given the phenomena that when we appreciate others, said Voltaire, then their qualities become ours. And when you're envious of other people's good qualities, then you become impervious to them. You can't assimilate the good qualities of others by being envious of them. Just by logic alone, we shouldn't be envious. But if we take risks by not being envious, because it's a guarded state that if I appreciate this person too much, maybe they'll supersede me. And what right do they have to look better than me? If we're able to counteract that by glorifying, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu answered one of the devotees who asked him, how do we overcome blasphemy of devotees, he said, by praising them, sort of an antidote. And so if we apply that in our lives, that could be very important. And also, just as a general admonition, please be nice to each other and treat each other with respect and kindness and generosity, and be united in the cause. Okay? Say yes, yes.
I've had a couple of realizations on this. Several years ago, I was thinking about there were two god sisters in particular who scared me when I was a new devotee because of how they interacted with me. But they were great devotees. And as time went on, they mellowed and they became greater devotees. And I find now I cherish those instances that I had with them when they yelled at me or, were instructing me in a way that I could have taken the wrong way. And they actually became endearing to me. So, that we have a long life together, hopefully. And so not to judge a situation or a person by one situation. That's been helpful. And the other thing that recently came to my mind was in exchanging gifts. Some of the best gifts that I've been given was service. If you're in a position to share service or give service to a devotee, that's the best service. If it's something that they can take and carry on for years, years or months or for however long, it's a really important thing to be able to do, is share service with each other. That's because, your service, your saver will save you. And it's a bond that you'll always have with this other person. So that's something that doesn't necessarily come to mind when you think of giving gifts, but just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Finished, right? 11 o'clock. Thank you very much, everyone, for assembling, coming from various places, and just feel like I'll just say Sandesh is the best, because you take the best substance, milk, and then somehow you refine it more, and it becomes smooth, and no granules in it at all. Sandesh has to be completely smooth, and it takes patience to make Sandesh. And then, even if you don't flavor it, you don't have to put any flavor, because it's Śraddhā sattva once it's offered to the deities. If you offer Sandesh to the deities, and you just look at it, you could meditate on it. You could go to sleep thinking about Maha Sandesh, because it is the most refined item on the earthly planet, is Maha Sandesh. And so that's what we should consume. And I'm saying that metaphorically because I don't want you to get diabetes or something, but we should endeavor for the Sandesh of life. In our personal dealings with others, it should be without those granules. We should smooth it out. If you have differences with others, that means do you know how to make Sandesh? First you make curd and try to not put anything in it that affects the flavor, some acidic agent that makes the milk curdle. Then you have to strain it, then you have to start working on it. And experts sometimes they use various machines, or machine plus hand, and you have to make it smooth and smooth and smooth until there's nothing. You can't detect any granule in it. And so in all of our services and the way we interact with others, we have to learn to smooth it out, keep smoothing it till we get to that thing that's offerable to Krishna, sandesh. When you offer to Krishna, it can't have any granules in it. And if we make that our ideal, to bring everything to that point of sandesh in our lives, the way we interact with the devotees, the service that we're offering to the public when we go out to meet them, that should be pure in our practice and in our intention. Make it like sandesh. Hare Krishna. Actually, what I meant to say was, and I forgot, this assembly is like sandesh, because everywhere I look, I find no granules. It's all, I mean, everyone I look at, I go, yeah, I like that person and I like that person. And that's what this whole experience is. It's a lot of work to make sandesh, and all you get is one little thing like that. And this is a lot of work. But what we have here in this assembly, it's very sandesh-esque, isn't it? Hare Krishna. Take the mic away.